Hi, everyone. Today, David and I sat down with Tony, who is a nonprofit coach. He also has a podcast and he has experience in the comedy world. He explained all of his tips on communication, his expertise on comedy, as well as communication. I found this interview to be very powerful. He provided so many great tips for homeschoolers that will be vital for the rest of their lives and as they advance into the future. Absolutely loved it, and it was a great conversation. Hope you guys enjoy.
What's up, everyone? Today we have Mr. Tony. Now, he's a podcast host. He helps nonprofits like ours. He has a very niche little thing that he focuses on, still makes a big impact, but he's also a comedian. If you could, Tony, just give him a quick background about you, who you are, kind of what you do.
I make a living doing fundraising for nonprofits. It's a very narrow niche. It's long-term fundraising called planned giving. But yes, in my background, I got to be honest, David. I don't do stand up or improv right now, but I have in the past, and they have definitely helped me in my business. Just confidence, like speaking, presenting. And that even just includes speaking, just even one on one. I don't necessarily mean to an audience, just small group meetings. I have learned a lot from stand up and improv.
So, as homeschoolers, one of the biggest fears that families have is the fact that their kid's going to grow up and be socially awkward. Now, I am very, very confident that our ability to communicate comes from reps that we're putting in with other people, but it also comes to our ability to formate like what we're thinking into words to allow the other person to see inside of it. When it comes to stand-up comedy, why do you think, and improv, why do you think that elevated you as a communicator compared to just having conversations with other people?
A greater degree of confidence, because stand up and improv, you are in front of an audience,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
So if I write material and nobody ever hears it, there's a word for that. It's called a diary. That's not what we're trying to do in stand up and improv. We're trying to engage with people, with an audience, right? I'm not trying to write a diary.
Without a doubt.
So yeah, um, because you're thinking about timing, and of
Mm-hmm.
course, even before that, before you're on stage, you're thinking carefully about your content, and then your timing, delivery, word choice. So it's just become ingrained in me to prepare. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the preparation maybe only be 2 minutes. I mean, depending on what I'm preparing for. If it's a formal training, I'm preparing for hours. If it's a meeting and it's similar to a meeting I've done in the past, it might just be like 2 minutes or
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes. I'm just thinking through in my head, maybe taking some very bare notes, like like post-it note size.
Mm-hmm.
Just a couple of points that I want to make sure that I bring across in this meeting, whatever the purpose is. But the preparation. So for me, it's more thinking than writing. Other people may prepare differently, but
Mm-hmm.
that's how I'm just kind of thinking through, what do I want to say? What points do I want to make sure I make? Um, so there's that. It trained me with a preparation. So I would say, you want to think about what your goals are for any meeting, any
Mm-hmm.
whether and same for your children. Teaching them to be good communicators, I think, is knowing who they're talking to and what do they want to convey. And likewise, I think you want to be thinking, what's the other person going to be conveying? Is there any conflict? Any conflict potential? I mean, that might be rare, but you want to think through. Is anybody going to object to what I'm planning to say? Or is it all just going to be, they're here to just listen to me?
I
So,
feel that.
who's your audience? What are your goals? And what are the words you're going to use to get there?
And I'm not a comic or comedian expert, but like I said before we started recording, all the comedians that I'm personally friends with that are trying to make it like a living, they are really good at communicating in general already. Like they're able to walk into a room, pick up a conversation, read the room, where to make people laugh, how to make people laugh. What do you think? Is it because of that preparation, or is it just because you guys are doing, or you're not doing it anymore, but you guys are so focused on delivery, tone, setting them up? Do you think that's why they're able to communicate so well, or do you think people that fall into this path are just natural born communicators.
No, no, you can learn it. No, they're doing very well because they practice.
Mm,
Like, they practice with their in front of themselves. They record themselves and then listen back to themselves. They probably practice at open mics.
mm-hmm.
They may practice in small clubs or bars before they get to a bigger club or a bigger venue. It's preparation, it's practice. Like, communicating is a muscle. You
Mm,
got to exercise. You want to grow the muscle. You got to exercise it. You got to. So when you start running, right? To exercise that way, you don't
mm-hmm.
start with a marathon. You start running around the block. Then you run around the
Very
block
true.
twice, and then you run around. Then you run a half a mile. And then you're doing a mile. And then you're doing a
Mm-hmm.
5K. You gotta exercise the muscle. So it's the preparation. It's the practice. Work that muscle. Talk to people.
I like
Listen
what you
listen
said
to
too about
yourself.
listening to it. I think that's
Listen.
very important.
Yeah. I think a good part of being a communicator is being an excellent listener.
Mm,
You
yes,
know,
sir.
I was saying earlier about preparing your part of the meeting and thinking about what other people might have to say, that they may say some things that you're not expecting. But
Mm,
you're not going to know that if you're not a good listener. An active listener. Are you actively, engaged in what the person is saying back to you, or are you more thinking about what you want to say next? That's
and
bad. The
I think
latter
that
the latter is
yes,
bad. That's
I think that's the problem. I actually had that problem, I think, a lot because you're so focused on, okay, how am I going to respond to this, that you're not taking in the information that the people are giving you and processing it. You're caught up on like, okay, I can say this, this, and this, compared to allowing the person to speak, process it, and then deliver a response based off of what you gathered.
Yeah, that's called a conversation, right? Like you and I are having a conversation. I mean,
Yes,
I
sir.
like I like to talk to people like we're sharing a glass of wine, we're over a meal together. I like to communicate that way, and when I'm meeting donors to my clients in the fundraising practice are all nonprofits. I work on behalf of the nonprofits. I meet donors to encourage them to make the long-term gifts to nonprofits. I like meeting donors over meals. It's a shared space. I'm not saying you
Mm-hmm.
share them. I'm not saying you share your meal, but it's a shared space. We got the table in common, and it's a nice cadence. Everybody knows the server's going to come, greet, take a drink
Mm-hmm.
order. That drink may or may not be alcohol. Doesn't matter. They're going to take a drink order. Now we got just a couple minutes. The drink order is going to come back. Now we're going to give our entree and app order. And then we got good 15, 20 minutes before that comes. Or if we
Mm-hmm.
got sandwiches, then we know it's only like 8 or 10 minutes. And then we got time to eat. And eating allows for good listening. It's good pausing. Lots of pauses, of course, while you're eating. I mean, it could
Mm-hmm.
be an hour-long meal. And there's only going to be occasional interruptions. Like the server's going to come and check on you. Is everything okay? Can I refresh your drink? But that's going to be very brief, and then you're going to be good. So that's a good long period when you can get into the meat of the conversation after you worked your way in with the shorter times around the ordering. So
Mm-hmm.
what's the whole point of that? I like to think of a shared space as I'm talking to people. We're sharing a space. You and I are sharing a space, and Beth is included in our space. She's part of the conversation, but you and I are doing most of the talking. But we're sharing a space together. In my head, we're sharing a space. We're not literally, we're on Zoom together, but
Mm-hmm.
metaphorically, I think of us as sharing a space together as we're in this conversation. And when you get really good at it, I find with my podcast, you can keep in mind what you want to ask and also be responsive to what the person has just been saying.
Mm-hmm.
And that just comes, that's practice.
That's practice.
Exercise the muscle. Exercise the muscle and you'll get good at it.
So for kids, I'm going to bring it back to communication, but I want to stick on as kids growing up, we have all these crazy dreams that we want to do. The life kind of we want to live. What do we want to do for a kid that's considering comedy, being a stand-up, doing that kind of thing, what are some advices you have to them? You told them how to kind of develop their skill, recording themselves, listening, practicing, but if a kid is interested in maybe walking that path, what are some things they should start doing to kind of set themselves up? Would it be listening to other comedians? How did they present? What did they do? Or is it more just getting out there and putting yourself out there and being okay with that?
The first thing I would say is stay in school, get an education, because the number of comics that make a living at comedy
Small.
is very small
Mm-hmm.
compared to the denominator of how many comics and aspiring comics there are in the country. I did it for about 2 years in New York City, and the most I ever got paid for a night was $20.
No way,
All right.
really.
Yeah, so I was not making a living at comedy. So the odds, I'm not discouraging anybody, and I'm going to get to
Mm-hmm.
your question about what would you do. The first thing I would do is make sure you got a solid education, because you're up against steep odds. And I
Mm-hmm.
saw people much funnier than me who used to train me, and even they were struggling. They were not making a living at it. I mean, they would sometimes get invited to festivals in other states and things like that. But to make a living at comedy, it's rare. So
It's very
you
small.
gotta know it's rare. It happens. I mean, we all know comics, right? You can
Mm-hmm.
name, I can name them from my generation. You can name comics of the current day. It happens, but you got to know that for every one that you see, there's probably 25,000 aspirants.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So to make a living at it is unusual. But that doesn't mean that's the only way to go about being a comic. You can still do it. I did it in my spare time. Obviously, I didn't make a living at it, but I was doing it for maybe it was even 2.5 years. So, um, yes, listen back to yourself, as I'd said earlier. Yeah, listen to comics that you like. What do they do? Um, Pay attention to their timing, their cadence. In terms of subject, I would say talk about things that you think are funny. Like if you find politics funny, then lean toward politics. You find your own life funny, you like to be more introspective, or more your family. What do you find humorous? Because that's what's going to move you to write material and rehearse material and practice it and practice it and practice it. You don't want to be bored with your own material. If you're bored, then you're just phoning it in. Nobody's gonna be motivated by that. Nobody's gonna laugh with you because you're phoning it in yourself. You don't even find it enjoyable to do. So you gotta focus on material that you find funny and
Mm-hmm.
go from there. That could be your life, your family life, business, your job, your friends. It could be your love life, your past love life. Whatever,
Whatever you enjoy.
whatever you find funny. Yeah, because you're going
I
to be
love
working
it.
with this material for hundreds of hours.
And to
David,
bring
can
it back,
I? Oh,
of
sorry, David.
course, no, do your thing,
I just
girl.
had a quick question how you were talking about using a shared space. Are you, and I'm not anti-technology, but I just have a question based on the rise of social media, AI, people are not getting together and connecting in person as much. So are you concerned that more and more people will not utilize a shared space to communicate?
It won't. I don't. Yes, but not. I don't think I'll see it in my lifetime. So did I already
Mhm.
say I'm 64. I always prefer face-to-face meetings
Sure.
I prefer face to face over the phone. I prefer the
Hmm.
phone over Zoom,
Yeah.
and I prefer Zoom, I guess, over not communicating at all, or over
Mhm.
communicating by letter or something. Although I am a big fan of handwritten notes. You want to
Mhm.
make an
Yeah.
impression on you want to make an impression on somebody as a student,
Yes.
as you're growing. You want to make an impression on somebody, and I don't care if you're even only 12 years old. Write them a note.
Yeah.
Take the time to handwrite, not Word, not on your parents' laptop, not
Mm-hmm.
on your laptop.
Mhm.
Handwritten note, a little card. Doesn't have to be a full page of paper. Go to CVS or Staples or What's the other one? I can't think of it. Office Depot. Get little note cards, little note cards, and you just write thoughtful, short. Like the length is not important. It's coming from the heart. That's what's
Yeah,
important. Little handwritten notes to say thank you to people who did something nice for you, or to say I'm thinking about you, and I decided to write a note instead of picking up the phone,
I love
or
that.
Mm-hmm.
instead of texting, obviously. So you want to stand out, write handwritten notes. And why does it stand out? Because nobody does it. And the person who gets your note, they know you took the time to handwrite,
Yep.
a note. People love that. So don't be surprised if you get a handwritten note back. And now you're expanding the handwritten notes instead of the
Mm-hmm.
texts.
Love
Okay.
that.
So yes, I'm not anti-technology either. It's not going to happen in my lifetime, but
Mhm.
do I get concerned that we are less connected as human beings than we were even just 10 years ago? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do. I do.
Yeah, yeah.
And just to further your point about the handwritten notes, one of the things my brother and I started doing was after we pick up a new customer and we do their boat for the first time, we always just leave a handwritten note. Maybe if there's something like, hey, we see this is going to be an issue in the future, hey, make sure you're looking out for this. But also just a handwritten note saying, thank you for letting us try, uh, giving us your business. We enjoyed it, whatever. Something small that we just leave right on the console. Sometimes they don't see it for a couple of weeks. They don't use their boat that often, but it has got us a lot of good reviews and it's gotten us a lot of referrals just by people because we stood out in their brain a little bit,
Yep.
So it was
Yep.
just something so small. And so it does the handwritten notes. If you want to stand out, I can just second what he said. That definitely, it definitely works, especially today. Cause like you said, no one else is doing it.
I love that you're doing that, you and your brother in your business. That's smart. So you got little note cards branded with your company logo on it.
We don't have the brandy yet. I just keep a
Oh,
flat.
go
I
to a
keep it.
printer. Come on,
I know.
go
I
to a cheap
know.
print shop, get a branded envelope, little envelope with a
Okay. I like
with
that.
a branded logo. Just the logo, the company logo,
Uh-huh.
and put that in, and then the envelope on the envelope it doesn't even the envelope doesn't have to really be branded. You could just get matching ivory envelopes or
Mm-hmm.
matching your company color, whatever you decide to print it in. But a little envelope,
I like that idea.
dear sir, Mr. and Mrs., however you know the person. And then I
Uh-huh.
love you leaving it on the console for them. It's a surprise. They get that
Mm-hmm.
surprise. Nice.
Yep.
That's a nice touch. Yep.
David, I
No,
can make that for you. I know how to do it.
there we
So,
go. Look at that.
You go. Just print it on a cardstock. There you go.
yeah,
Put the
it's
logo
very
on the
easy.
cardstock and
Yeah.
buy matching envelopes. And you print it on an ivory card, then
Mhm.
just buy ivory envelopes at Staples. There you
I
go.
love it. And now I want to make sure because I know we have a time crunch here. So when it comes to what you do, you know, I have to imagine that in order to be successful in something that's so niche down, that's something that's so also pushed out, it's way down the line, as you were saying earlier. It may not happen for 30 years if they agree to do it. I would imagine you communicating with them and building that relationship is what ends up being the deciding factor of whether or not that individual corporation does put a trust or put it in their will, whatever it is. I would imagine that relationship building plays a huge part in it. Am I right?
Absolutely, David. Yep. I'm in a relationship business. Yes.
So then, what have you,
Fundraising is a relationship business.
without a doubt, now what are the things that you're seeing work the best when it comes to building that relationship from maybe that square one where they're just starting out, you guys just came in contact with each other? What are you seeing, what do you do to kind of build that relationship and cultivate it to where that person is going to be passionate enough to make such a big decision of saying, hey, this money I have left over, I'm dedicating a portion of this to go to this nonprofit or charity, whatever it is?
I would say listening.
Listening is the biggest one.
I like to have meetings with donors and potential donors where they do 80 to 85% of the talking, and I'm doing 10 or 15%, yeah, whatever that is, 15 or 20%.
Mm-hmm.
Open-ended questions. What, why do you, what is it that drew you to this mission? What do we do that you especially love? Is it if it's an animal shelter? Is it cats or dogs for you, or both?
Mm-hmm.
Or what is it? Do you love that we do outreach to small towns and bring animals from their shelters? Or is it more the education that we do in the schools to teach children about animal health and animal welfare and the beauty of having animals in your life? If it's domestic violence shelter, is it because we have a 24/7 drop-in? Or is it because we serve meals and a lot of shelters aren't capable of doing that? Or is it because we have long-term housing? Or is it because we're only short-term? Or because you have both? What is it that
Hmm.
you love about our work? What draws you here? And then I'm also interested in the people. What do you do? Are you retired? What do you retire from? So many people ask, what did you do? What do you do? Oh, I'm retired. Oh, okay. What did you retire from? You had a whole career. What did you retire from? Did you raise a family doing that? Did you have to move?
Yeah.
Did your business, did the being in that business take you around the state, around the country, the world, or you spent
Hmm.
all your life in all your working life in one place? How many children do you have? Were you ever married? Are you now? Do you have children? What do your
Hmm.
children do? What do your grandchildren do? Where do they live? Are they close? Are they far? Where'd they go to school? Where'd you go to school? All these kinds of open-ended questions. Did you go to school? Nobody's going to say yes. Did you? Yes. Where'd you go to school? In my hometown. Oh, okay. Tell me about your hometown. What was it like? What were your parents do? Did your mom
Uh-huh.
work? Did she stay home? There's just thousands of questions you can ask people to get them to open up. And
No,
that's how
I love.
and you're listening. You're listening. You're having a conversation. Oh, you don't you want to be careful not to turn it back to you. Oh, I grew up near that. I grew up near Pittsburgh. Oh yeah, I love Pittsburgh. I used to go to the Pirates games all the time. Oh, and I love the Three Rivers Stadium back when it was Three Rivers. But then they changed the name, and I wasn't too happy about that. And I like going to the point, but then there's the spout up on the mount, and I like going there. And I used to bring my girlfriends there when I was in college. And what did I just do? I turned it all about me.
Hmm.
I'm not now I'm exceeding the 15 to 20% talking. Don't, I mean, you certainly have a conversation. Oh, I spent a lot of time in Pittsburgh. I went to college there. Oh, where'd you go? I went to Carnegie Mellon. But tell me more about when you went to Duquesne. Tell me more about
Yeah.
your years in Duquesne. Put it back to the person. Don't bring it back to yourself and keep it there. Sure, of course, you have some personal shared experience. Of course, share that, but bring it back to the other person. That's how you that's how you build trust. That's because you're interested in them.
Hmm.
You didn't every time they talk, you didn't turn it back to you. You're interested in them. That's how you build relationships. That's how you build trust. And that's how people give to causes that are represented by people who they like. They want to hang out with you. They like you because you spend
Hmm.
time with them and you listen to them and you represent a cause that means a lot to them.
Hmm.
That's why you were exactly right when you said it's a relationship business.
No, and I liked what you said too about making sure to always turn it back to them at the end. That's a harder thing for people to do when they're caught up in the conversation because in theory you would want to share, hey, I did this, I took my girlfriends there, like you said, I did all this, and you can do it, but twisting it at that very end to put it back onto them, I feel like is that ability that or is what makes gives it the ability to actually make that connection because it's everyone likes to talk about themselves because it's easy, they know it, it's open. So if you can constantly figure out a way to, okay, I'm gonna twist this back to them at the end of it, I think that's a golden nugget that you kind of just dropped right there. um Now when it comes to, were you always outgoing, were you shy at first, was this because obviously since we got on the call, super easy to talk to you. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
very easy to talk to you. Have you always been like that, or is this something that you built after 29 years in the business, like you said?
Uh, More built. I was pretty quiet growing up.
Were you really?
Yeah. I mean, I had my clique of friends,
Mm-hmm.
but outside that, not a lot. I guess I'm kind of describing like elementary and high school. But then I don't know, maybe college kind of opened me up, and then I was in the Air Force. You got to work collegially. College, you
Mm-hmm.
work in teams, of course, and it's not so much independent work; it becomes more teamwork. So I would say those were the years. I went to college, and then I was right in the Air Force because I had an ROTC scholarship. So
Okay.
I would say college years, I started to open up. So even more than 29 years, because I was in college in 1980. So that kind of broadened me a bit. Yeah.
It did. So
And
you believe
then,
it?
and I
What?
like like microphones don't scare me, and talking to people doesn't scare, I don't mind going up to a group and just standing and waiting for my chance to introduce myself. That's, I find that's a comfortable place for me.
So you've always been comfortable with that. Then it's not something.
Since like high school or so. Yeah.
So parents right now who have a kid who's maybe shy, they should understand that. For me, I always feel like with the kids, you don't want to turn them into somebody they're not. Because if it's me, I'm very outgoing. My brother on the other end, super quiet. He can communicate with anybody, but he's not. He's not one to. He's the one that you're like, hey, you need to talk more. Get up to 10% of talking. Uh, but I just think that if my dad or mom would have tried to make me like him or him like me when we were growing up, it would have hindered us. We can each, whether I give the estimate to the customer or he does, the people are still comfortable with us. So where I'm going at is, even in your story, no matter if a kid's shy when they're younger, they can still develop into a great communicator, whether it's they're an extrovert, introvert, whatever people want to label them these days. Um, do you think that as homeschooling families, they should start putting, for me, I think like Toastmasters, getting your kids comfortable getting up, talking in front of people. Do you think that's something they should do? Or do you just think, hey, eventually they're going to come out of their shell, kind of let it play out? Which way do you kind of lean?
Yeah. Well, first of all, you're asking a guy who has no children. So of the three of us,
So you're the perfect one.
I'm probably of the three of us, I am the least qualified. Not probably, I am the least qualified of the three of us to opine on this. Um, I would say, like maybe test boundaries,
Okay.
test some things, and if your child takes to it, then encourage it, and if not, you tried it out. So you're
Mm-hmm.
suggesting Toastmasters. If they take children in Toastmasters, is there a children's
I think because
affiliate to Toastmasters?
I think, I don't know, but I know that we talked to a couple homeschooling dads who are the high school age kids are in Toastmasters.
Okay.
So I don't know if it's maybe something specific they're doing, but they were the ones that kind of gave me that idea of getting a perfect place for kids to learn to talk in front of people, get comfortable presenting something, because we know, and like you said, for me, we should have a pitch deck. No matter what you're doing, you're gonna have to present in some way, shape, or form with communication. So they're the ones that kind of embedded that into my head, but I don't know if it's a specific age or if it's maybe like a niched off thing of Toastmasters that they're doing.
Okay. But even beyond that, there are opportunities. There are plays in school,
Mm-hmm.
plays, um, other performances. I if I had a child, I think I would test out. Why don't you audition for the school play? See how you feel. See how you do.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you make it or not, doesn't matter. You tried.
Mhm.
So like little performance possibilities like that. That's not solo, but that's okay. You also learn some teamwork that way, because if you're in a play or a production together, all got to work together,
Yeah.
front of house, backstage.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would encourage those kinds of things, and if they don't feel right, then I would say that's not the venue. That's not the way for your children.
No, I think that's really good. And like you said, allowing them to feel it out. Now we're pulling up here on 2:30, so I want to make sure we get you out of here.
Okay.
Tony, I really appreciate you taking your time. And I'm definitely going to go subscribe to your podcast and start listening because I have a lot to learn. A lot to learn.
Okay. Well, good luck to you, David, in the nonprofit you were telling me about before we started recording, and in your business, of course, too.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate it, my man.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so much.
much.
Thank you. Thank you, Beth, for putting us all together, too. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. Thank you so much.
My
All right.
pleasure.
Bye bye.